They didn't know her name. They only knew that when the shooting stopped, half their team was still breathing because of her. And that was a problem. The ocean was calm. That alone made it suspicious. SEAL Team 7 moved through the water without a sound, black wetsuits cutting through the dark like shadows that had learned how to breathe. Night swallowed everything beyond a few meters. No moon, no stars, just the slow rhythm of waves and the steady beat of trained hearts. Lieutenant Mark Hale checked his watch underwater. 3 minutes to shore. No alarms. No patrol lights. No mistakes. Yet something felt wrong. He couldn't name it. That was the dangerous part. The mission was simple on paper. Insert, secure, extract. Intelligence suggested a high-value meeting inside a coastal compound controlled by a cartel-backed militia. Weapons. Money. Names that weren't supposed to exist. SEALs were very good at making things like that disappear. What they weren't prepared for was her. She waited on shore. Not hiding. Not moving. Just standing where the surf met sand. Dressed in civilian clothes that didn't belong anywhere near a place like this. Dark jacket. Loose hair catching the breeze. Calm posture. Beautiful, yes. But not in a way that invited attention. In a way that controlled it. Hale raised his fist. The team froze instantly, water dripping from gear as they watched her through night optics. Contact, Hale whispered. Female. Alone. One of the operators muttered. That's a hell of a place for a civilian. Another added. Could be bait. The woman didn't run. Didn't wave. Didn't reach for a weapon. She simply looked straight at them, as if she had been waiting. Hale stepped forward, weapon trained, voice firm. Don't move. She smiled faintly. Relax, she said in perfect English. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be late. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. Hale felt his jaw tighten. That wasn't bravado. That was confidence earned somewhere ugly. Who are you? He asked. She took a slow step back, hands visible. My name doesn't matter, she said. What matters is that your mission just changed. One of the SEALs laughed under his breath. Yeah? Says who? She turned her eyes to him. The laughter died instantly. Because the building you're heading toward, she said calmly, is already compromised. And because the people inside aren't who you think they are. Hale didn't lower his weapon, but he didn't fire either. How do you know our target? He asked. She hesitated, just long enough to be human. Because I was invited to the meeting, she said. That changed everything. They moved her inland with them. No cuffs. No unnecessary force. Just controlled pressure. Hale hated it. Everything about her presence felt like a variable they hadn't planned for. SEALs survived on predictability, discipline, repeatable patterns. She was none of those things. Inside the treeline, she finally spoke again. You don't trust me, she said. Hale answered without hesitation. No. She nodded. Good. You shouldn't. He stopped walking. She turned, meeting his eyes under the faint green glow of NVGs. But you should listen, she added. Because in 10 minutes, one of your men will be dead if you don't. That was not a threat. That was a forecast. Her name was Elena Vale. She gave it only after Hale demanded it, and even then, he wasn't sure it was real. She moved with a grace that didn't belong to civilians. Every step careful, every pause intentional. She didn't look at weapons with fear or curiosity. She looked at them like tools she knew how to use. You said the meeting is compromised, Hale said as they approached Overwatch position. Explain. Elena crouched beside him, close enough that he could smell salt and something faintly metallic, like old blood that had never quite washed out. The cartel isn't running the operation anymore, she said. They're hosting it. For who? She exhaled slowly. For someone who wants your team here. That got his attention. Why? Elena's eyes lifted toward the compound, lights glowing softly in the distance. Because someone wants to know how SEALs respond when everything goes wrong. Silence. Hale felt the weight of that settle into his chest. Who? He asked. Elena didn't answer. Instead, she said, your sniper position is already marked. Hale's radio crackled immediately. Actual, the sniper whispered. I'm compromised. Laser sweep just crossed my optic. Hale swore under his breath. Elena looked at him calmly. They're testing you, she said. And they won't stop with one mistake. Hale stared at the compound again. Then at her. Why help us? He asked. Elena's expression softened, just slightly. Because I've seen what happens when they win, she said. And I don't like owing monsters favors. The first shot came early. Too early. Not from the compound. From the jungle behind them. One of Hale's men dropped instantly. Armor hit. Breath driven from his lungs. Not dead, but dangerously close. Ambush. Perfectly timed. Contact rear. Hale shouted. The night exploded into chaos. Gunfire ripped through trees. Tracers carved lines through darkness. Seals moved with lethal precision, returning fire, shifting positions. Elena didn't scream. Didn't run. She dropped flat, crawling toward cover with the instincts of someone who had done this before. Your rear security was bait, she shouted over gunfire. They wanted you split. Hale rolled beside her. How do you know? She chambered a round in a rifle she had taken from the fallen seal. Clean, practiced motion. Because that's how I'd do it. She raised the weapon. Fired once. A shadow fell from the trees. Dead. Hale stared at her. That shot wasn't lucky. It was professional. The fight lasted 90 seconds. When it ended, the jungle went quiet again. Too quiet. Hale looked at his wounded man, then at Elena. You're not a civilian, he said. She met his gaze. No, she replied. I never was. Far away, inside the compound, someone watched through thermal optics and smiled. Hale's team moved again the moment the rear contact ended. Not because they wanted to rush, because staying still in the dark was how you got harvested. They dragged their wounded man into cover. Doc already working, hands quick and ruthless. A tourniquet snapped tight, a needle slid into a vein, a chest seal pressed against torn fabric. Elena Vale crouched beside a tree, rifle low, breathing steady. No tremor. No panic. Hale watched her with the same feeling he'd had on the beach, like she was a variable that didn't belong on the board, but somehow controlled the whole game. You just took my rifle, Hale said. Elena didn't look at him. You weren't using it. Hale clenched his jaw. Who trained you? Elena's eyes flicked toward the compound lights again. Someone who didn't survive long enough to retire. That wasn't an answer. It was a warning. Hale leaned in. I don't care what your name is. I care who you work for. Elena finally met his eyes. The green glow of night vision turned her expression into something ancient and unreadable. I work for myself, she said, which is why I'm still alive. Hale wanted to push, but his radio crackled. Actual, the sniper whispered. Compound has movement. Multiple vehicles. I'm seeing additional security. Hale glanced toward the compound. They're relocating. Elena shook her head once. No, they're preparing. For what? For you, she said. They reached their overwatch point 5 minutes later, an elevated scrub line with a clean view of the compound perimeter and the main building where the meeting was supposed to happen. From here, the place looked too perfect. Lights placed at intervals. Guards moving in patterns that tried to look random but weren't. A pair of heavy trucks parked near the gate. A comms tower disguised as a weather mast. Militia would have been sloppy. This was tidy. ISR feed says the HVT enters in 8 minutes. Hale murmured into the net. More to anchor his team than to convince himself. We breach on my mark. Elena shifted beside him, scanning with binoculars. Your ISR is late, she said quietly. Hale's eyes narrowed. Explain. She pointed at the comms tower. That's not militia comms. That's professional signal management. They're shaping what you see. Hale felt something cold crawl through his chest. Someone is spoofing our feed. Elena nodded. Or delaying it. Or feeding you what they want. Hale keyed his mic, all elements, hold. We may be compromised. Brick, Hale's second in command, snapped back. We're already compromised. We've got a man wounded. We still don't walk into a prepared trap, Hale replied. Elena leaned closer. If you go in now, You'll be walking into a room built to swallow you. Hale stared at her. How do you know what's inside? Elena's mouth tightened. Because I've been in that room. Silence. Hale's grip tightened on his rifle. When Elena exhaled slowly, as if choosing her words carefully, not as a guest. Before Hale could demand more, the compound gate opened. A convoy rolled in. Not militia trucks. Black SUVs. Armored. 4 of them. They moved with quiet authority, engines low, headlights off. The guards at the gate didn't check them. They stepped aside. That made Hale's stomach drop. Those aren't cartel, Brick whispered. No, Elena said. They're the reason the cartel is scared. The SUVs pulled up near the main building. Men in dark gear stepped out. No insignia, no patches, weapons carried like extensions of their bodies. Professional. Quiet. Dangerous. One of them turned his head slightly, as if listening. Then he looked directly toward Hale's overwatch position. Hale froze. No one could see them this far in the dark, unless they already knew where to look. Elena lowered her binoculars, voice barely audible. He's not looking, she said. He's confirming. A faint red line swept across the scrub line where Hale lay. Laser designator. Hale's blood went ice. Down, he hissed. They dropped hard, flat against the earth. A heartbeat later, the ridge above them sparked as rounds hit rock. Not random fire. Precision shots. Someone was ranging their position. They're painting us, Brick breathed. Elena's voice cut through the panic with surgical calm. Your sniper nest was known before you got here. Hale swallowed. Then why bring us? Elena's eyes stayed on the compound. Because they want you to respond. The truth hit Hale like a punch. This was not a mission. This was a test. A controlled environment where someone wanted to see how SEALs handled pressure, how they moved, how they broke, how they adapted. And they'd pulled Elena into it as bait. Hale turned to her sharply. What did you do? Elena didn't flinch. I didn't set this. But I know why it exists. Hale's jaw clenched. Then talk. Elena hesitated, just a fraction. Then she said it. They're not trying to kill you. Brick barked a laugh. Sure felt like it. Elena's eyes didn't soften. They're trying to isolate you. Hale stared. To what end? To take one of you alive, she said. Or to take me back. Her words settled heavy. Hale's eyes sharpened. Back? From where? Elena's voice dropped lower. From a program that makes problems disappear. The laser swept again, closer now. Hale made a decision. Abort, he said into comms. All elements, break contact. Exfil route Delta. Brick cursed. We can't just walk away. We can't, Hale snapped. Or we die here. They began to move, slow, deliberate, staying low, sliding through scrub and shadow. The shots followed. Not to kill, to herd. Rounds punched into dirt just ahead of them, forcing them to shift. A classic pressure tactic. Guide the prey where you want it. Elena's eyes flicked left, calculating terrain. They're steering us toward the ravine, she said. Hale's stomach tightened. Why? Because you can't see the ravine from air, Elena replied. And because sound disappears down there. Hale felt something in his gut scream. Stop, he ordered. Too late. The ground ahead gave a soft click. A mine. Brick saw it at the same time. He froze, foot hovering. Hale's breath stopped. Elena moved. Fast. Not panicked, precise. She grabbed Brick's vest and yanked him backward hard enough that he hit the ground. The mine detonated. Not a killing blast, concussive. Dirt and rock erupted. The shock wave slammed through Hale's chest, knocking the air from his lungs. For a moment, the world was white noise. Then the ravine answered with echoes. Hale rolled, coughing, ears ringing. Doc was shouting. Someone was swearing. Someone else was laughing, sharp, broken. They were alive. Barely. Elena lay on her side, blood on her temple from the impact, eyes still clear. Hale crawled to her. You okay? Elena blinked once. Don't ask stupid questions. Hale almost smiled. Almost. Then the red laser line returned, dancing across the dirt near them. They were pinned again. Except now they were pinned inside the ravine's mouth, exactly where the enemy wanted them. Hale looked up at the ridgeline. A silhouette moved along the crest, one of the black gear operators. He didn't fire. He watched, like a scientist observing an animal. Hale's jaw tightened until it hurt. Brick's voice came through comms, shaken. What now? Hale stared at Elena. She wiped blood from her forehead with the back of her hand, eyes cold and focused. This is the part where you stop being a unit, she said quietly, and start being a story. Hale swallowed, then changed the story. Elena's eyes flicked to him, and for the first time, something like approval flashed there. Fine, she said, but you have to trust me. Hale held her gaze. Earn it, he said. Elena's mouth twitched. Watch. The ravine breathed. That was the first thing Hale noticed once the ringing in his ears settled. Wind slid along the stone walls, pulling sound downward, stretching it thin until it lost shape. A place like this swallowed noise and men. Elena lay still for a heartbeat longer than necessary, eyes tracing angles Hale didn't see yet. Then she rolled to a knee and spoke, low and precise. They're patient, she said, which means they're confident. Hale kept his voice even. Confident enough to not finish us? Confident enough to want something, she replied. You don't hunt specimens to kill them immediately. Brick shifted beside them, careful not to scrape rock. Specimens. Elena met his eyes. You. Hale felt the words settle like grit between his teeth. Explain the program, he said. Elena didn't look at him when she answered. She watched the ridgeline instead, counting silhouettes by the way heat shimmered where nothing should have been warm. It was never officially named, she said. That's how it stayed alive. It recruited operators who'd fallen off the grid, former SOF, intelligence assets, deniable specialists. People with records clean enough to erase or dirty enough to bury. Brick muttered, And you? Elena's jaw tightened. I was recruited for access. Language. Appearance. The ability to move through rooms without setting off alarms. Hale caught the meaning. Social engineering. And kinetic, she said. When necessary. Why leave? Hale asked. Elena's eyes flicked to him. Because the questions changed. They stopped asking how to solve problems and started asking how far. A faint movement on the ridge, one of the black gear operators shifting position. Elena leaned closer. They're waiting for us to make a mistake. Or a choice. Hale nodded. Then we don't give them either. Elena's mouth curved into something that wasn't a smile. We give them a third option. They split the team without splitting trust. Brick and two others slid deeper into the ravine, moving slow and low, disappearing into shadow. Hale took Doc and the rear security, anchoring the center. Elena stayed with Hale. They expect you to do this by doctrine, she said as they moved. Bound. Cover. Crawl. Hale whispered. And you? I expect them to watch you, Elena replied. Not me. She took off her jacket, folding it with care, then tied her hair loose. In the faint starlight, she looked less like a ghost and more like a person who belonged anywhere but here. Hale's brow furrowed. What are you doing? Changing the read, she said. They think you're all blades. I'm going to give them silk. Hale understood then. Dangerous, but brilliant. Timing, he asked. On my count. They reached a bend where the ravine widened just enough to show sky. Elena stepped out first. Not rushing. Not sneaking. She stood where the moonless night could silhouette her against stone, hands visible, posture open. A laser painted her shoulder. Then another. Hale's muscles coiled, every instinct screaming to pull her back. She didn't flinch. She raised her voice. Not shouting, just loud enough to carry. You already know who I am, she said. If you wanted me dead, I'd be dead. A figure moved on the ridge. Another appeared beside him. Elena tilted her head, listening. Send your watcher down, she continued, or you lose the chance. Silence stretched. Then gravel shifted. A single operator descended along a narrow goat path, movements efficient, rifle slung but ready. He stopped 10 meters away, posture relaxed, eyes hidden. You don't set the terms, he said. Elena smiled faintly. You followed me down. The man paused. That was the crack. Hale's comm chirped once. Brick's signal. In position. Elena stepped closer, slow, measured. You want to see how SEALs adapt, she said. Fine. Watch this. She turned, just enough. Hale moved. The ravine exploded into motion. Brick's element rose from shadow, weapons up, angles perfect. Hale surged forward, pulling Elena back as Doc dragged their wounded behind cover. The operator fired, but too late. Brick's burst stitched the rock beside him, forcing him down. Another SEAL slammed him from the side, pinning him hard. Up on the ridge, chaos. Black gear silhouettes broke cover, firing down into the ravine. But the sound, elongated, swallowed, gave their positions away. SEALs returned fire with discipline, walking shots along stone until bodies fell or disappeared. Elena crouched beside Hale, eyes alive now, calculating faster than the fight. Left spur, she said. They'll try to flank there. Hale trusted it. Shift left. They shifted. A team emerged from the spur seconds later, caught in a crossfire they hadn't expected. Two dropped. One fled. The ravine filled with smoke and echoing cracks. It wasn't a firefight anymore. It was a chessboard collapsing. Minutes later, the shooting thinned, then stopped. Hale's chest heaved. He scanned for movement. Nothing. They'd done it. Brick approached, breathing hard, helmet scratched, eyes bright. They pulled back. Fast. Hale nodded once. They got what they wanted. Elena wiped dirt from her cheek. They learned you don't behave. Hale looked at the captured operator, zip-tied and silent. And him. Elena studied the man for a moment, then shook her head. He's a message. Hale raised an eyebrow. She leaned in close to the prisoner. Tell them this, she said softly. Next time, don't invite me. The man didn't speak, but his jaw tightened. They released him. He vanished up the ravine without looking back. Dawn came thin and pale. The compound was empty when ISR finally caught up to reality. Vehicles gone. Lights dead. The meeting that never was had already dissolved. SEAL Team 7 exfiltrated under the cover of daylight haze. Wounded stabilized. Gear intact. On the flight out, Hale sat across from Elena, watching the coastline recede. You didn't have to come with us, he said. Elena met his gaze. I did. Why? She considered the ocean for a long moment. Because if they're testing you, they're testing everyone who comes after. And because stories end better when someone refuses to play their part. Hale nodded slowly. What happens now, he asked. Elena's eyes softened, just a touch. Now I disappear again. Hale frowned. You could stay. She smiled, real this time. No, you need fewer variables. The helicopter banked, carrying them away from the shore where the night had tried to swallow them whole. Far below, the ravine kept its secrets. And somewhere, a program marked a failure it couldn't explain. The problem with clean exits is that they never stay clean. SEAL Team 7 touched down at the forward staging base just after sunrise. The rotor wash scattered dust across the landing pad, blurring the horizon, turning the desert into a pale smear of heat and light. The team moved with the practiced efficiency of people who knew how to disappear into routine. Debrief, weapons check, med check, silence. Elena Vale walked with them until she didn't. At the edge of the pad, two men waited who did not wear patches. They didn't need them. Hale recognized the look instantly. Posture too relaxed, eyes too sharp, boots that had never needed to shine. They stood apart from everyone else, as if the base itself had been built around them. One of them held a tablet. The other watched Elena. Hale felt the air change. Elena, he said quietly, don't move. She stopped anyway. She had already seen them. Her shoulders squared, not in fear, but in recognition. The way a soldier recognizes weather that can't be outrun. Lieutenant Hale, the man with the tablet said. His voice was smooth, unhurried. We need to speak with your associate. Hale stepped between them without thinking. She's not part of your chain. The man smiled faintly. She is part of ours. Elena didn't argue. She leaned slightly to the side so Hale could see her face. "It's okay," she said. "This was always going to happen." Hale clenched his jaw. "You don't know that." "I do," she replied softly. "They don't like loose ends." The second man finally spoke. "Ms. Vale, you are requested for immediate debrief. Transportation is ready." Requested. The word meant nothing. Elena looked at Hale one last time, eyes steady, unreadable. "You did well," she said. "Don't let them turn this into a lesson you didn't earn." Before Hale could answer, Brick appeared at his side. "Sir," Brick said, voice tight. "Commands asking questions. A lot of them." Hale's eyes stayed locked on Elena. "She's under my protection." The man with the tablet tilted his head. "Lieutenant, you're very close to exceeding your authority." Hale took a slow breath. "Then let me be clear," he said. "She saved my team. She prevented a catastrophic loss. If you take her, you answer to me." The man smiled again, this time without warmth. "We don't answer," he said. "We assess." Elena stepped forward before Hale could do something that would end his career. "Lieutenant," she said quietly, "if you push, they'll burn you. And they won't even notice." Hale swallowed. "So you just go with them?" Elena nodded. "I always do." The men escorted her away, not roughly, not kindly, just efficiently. A vehicle waited beyond the hangars, unmarked, anonymous. Hale watched it disappear. He didn't move for a long time. The debrief was worse. Not because of what they asked, but because of what they didn't. They wanted timings, angles, decisions. They wanted to know why Hale had aborted the breach, why he had changed routes, why he had disengaged instead of pushing. They did not ask about Elena. That told Hale everything. "She wasn't on our op plan," the intelligence officer said, tapping a pen against the table. "And yet she influenced multiple tactical decisions." "She prevented a kill box," Hale replied. "She neutralized threats." She's not your concern," the officer interrupted. "Focus on your team." Hale leaned forward. "She is my team." The officer's eyes hardened. "Lieutenant, you're a professional. Don't make this personal." Hale stood. "This was personal the moment someone set a trap for my men." Silence followed. Then the officer closed the folder. "You're dismissed," he said. "Take the win." Hale left without saluting. 2 days passed. No word. Then 3. The base resumed its rhythm, training, patrols, briefings. The machine moved on. It always did. But Hale didn't. At night, he replayed the ravine, the laser, the mine. The moment Elena stepped into the open and turned a trap inside out. She had trusted him. He hadn't returned the favor. On the 4th night, Brick found him near the flight line, staring at nothing. "She's not in the system," Brick said quietly. Hale didn't look at him. "What?" Brick handed him a folded scrap of paper. "Coordinates." "That just showed up in my locker," Brick said. No name. No explanation. Hale's heart kicked hard. "Where?" he asked. Brick shrugged. "Nowhere official." Hale looked at the coordinates again. They pointed to a strip of coastline far south of their AO. No base. No compound. Just a stretch of rock and sea. A place you went when you didn't want to be found. They weren't ordered to go, so they didn't. They volunteered for a training insertion. Night water. Low signature. No questions. Hale didn't tell command why. He didn't need to. The team moved the way they always did, quiet, precise, lethal when necessary. They surfaced near the coordinates just after midnight. The shoreline was empty. For a moment, Hale thought he'd misread everything. Then a shadow detached from the rocks. Elena stepped into the moonlight. She looked the same, and completely different. Hair pulled back tighter. Jacket gone. A faint bruise along her jaw that hadn't been there before. But her eyes, still sharp, still dangerous. Hale exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Hale walked toward her. "Neither should you." She smiled faintly. "You disobey orders often?" "Only when it matters," he replied. Elena's smile faded. "They'll be watching." "Let them," Hale said. "We're done being studied." She searched his face. Then she nodded once. "Then we need to move." she said. Because this time, they won't test you. Hale's voice was steady. Good. He turned back to his team. Welcome to the part they don't write reports about, he said. The SEALs grinned. Far away, in a room without windows, someone marked the operation as unresolved. That word irritated them. Unresolved meant unfinished. And unfinished things had a habit of coming back. They moved before the ocean could change its mind. The SEALs didn't ask questions. They never did when the answers would slow them down. Elena led them inland along a path that didn't exist on any map. Jagged rock, salt-stained scrub, the kind of terrain people ignored because it promised nothing. Which made it perfect. 2 kilometers, Elena said quietly. There's a safe house. Not mine. Not theirs. Neutral. Hale matched her pace. You're bleeding. She glanced down at the dark patch on her sleeve. I'll live. That was not reassurance. They reached the structure just before dawn. A low concrete shell half swallowed by earth, the sea wind carving lines into its walls. Inside, it was bare, no comforts, no flags, just old power lines and a table bolted to the floor. Elena locked the door from the inside. They tracked me the moment I landed, she said. Not with GPS. With people. Brick nodded. Pattern of life. Yes, Elena replied. And habits. She looked at Hale. Which means this ends now. Hale folded his arms. Explain. Elena reached into her pack and set a small device on the table. No markings, no lights. She connected it to a tablet. A list appeared. Names. Coordinates. Operations. Not rumors. Not fragments. Proof. Hale's breath slowed. That's everything. Not everything, Elena said. Enough. Brick stared. Why didn't they take this from you? They tried, Elena replied. They don't know I split it. Hale looked at her sharply. Split. She nodded. Dead man logic. If I disappear, parts of this go public. Slowly. Selectively. Who has the rest? Hale asked. Elena met his eyes. People who don't wear uniforms. Silence settled. Hale understood then. This wasn't leverage. It was deterrence. You're the last variable, he said. Elena nodded. And they don't tolerate variables. The sound came faintly at first, rotors, far out over the water. Then another set. Then another. Bricks swore softly. They found us. Elena closed the tablet. No. They found you. Hale didn't hesitate. Then they're late. The first helicopter appeared over the ridge as the sun broke the horizon. Not marked. Not friendly. Not hostile, until it needed to be. Hale's team moved with cold efficiency, setting positions, blocking angles, denying clean approaches. They weren't here to win. They were here to leave. The helicopter flared, hovering just long enough for a voice to carry through a loudspeaker. Lieutenant Hale. Step away from the woman. Hale didn't answer. Elena leaned in. If you engage, they'll escalate. Hale replied without looking at her. They already did. The helicopter lowered a cable. A man descended, dark gear, familiar silhouette. The same operator from the ravine. He landed lightly, weapon slung. Ms. Vale, he said. This is your last chance. Elena stepped forward. Hale grabbed her arm. Don't. She shook her head gently. This is the only way. The operator smiled faintly. You belong to a program. Elena looked at him, calm, unafraid. No, I belong to a mistake. She raised her voice, just enough. If anything happens to me, she said, the files release. The operator's smile faded. Bluff, he said. Elena met his eyes. Try me. The helicopter above shifted, uneasy. Hale saw it then, hesitation. Not fear. Calculation. Elena wasn't expendable anymore. She was expensive. The operator keyed his mic, listening. Seconds passed. Then the cable retracted. The helicopter climbed. The operator stepped back. This isn't over, he said. Elena nodded. It never is. The helicopters pulled away, rotors fading into distance. The wind returned. Hale exhaled. Brick laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. We just scared ghosts. Elena shook her head. No. We reminded them what consequences look like. They didn't celebrate. They exfiltrated before noon, split into elements, erased tracks, vanished the way seals did best. Elena peeled away at the last junction, backpack light, eyes steady. Hale walked with her to the edge. "What happens now?" he asked. Elena looked toward the sea. "Now they leave me alone. And I leave you untouched." Hale frowned. "You could stay." She smiled softly. "You need fewer variables." He nodded. He understood. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "You did the right thing." Hale held her gaze. "So did you." Elena turned away, then paused. "Lieutenant," she said without looking back, "next time someone tests you, don't let them write the questions." She disappeared into the scrub. Months later, Hale read a brief line buried in a classified update. "Program discontinued due to unacceptable exposure risk." No names. No reasons. Just an end. Hale folded the report and locked it away. He went back to work. The team rotated. Missions came and went. New variables appeared. But some nights, when the ocean was calm enough to feel suspicious, Hale thought about a woman who stepped into the open and turned a trap into a mirror. And he remembered the truth every SEAL eventually learns. The most dangerous thing on the battlefield isn't a weapon. It's the person who refuses to be owned. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Epic Recon Stories. Here we tell the missions that never made the headlines, the decisions made in silence, and the people who carried them. More stories are coming soon.